We need to have a conversation about Africa's potential.
Tonight on the Bottom Line, President William Ruto asks for fairness in combating climate change across the world on day 2 of the conference. Also tonight, the taxpayer lost 150 million shillings over expired drugs, Parliament told as the probe on losses at the agency continues. And we do not recognize cryptocurrency in the country, says CBK governor, as hundreds of Kenyans decry complications after the controversial registration. Now, President William Ruto has asked for fairness in tackling climate change in Africa. Now, speaking on day 2 of the Africa Climate Summit, Ruto further proposed the introduction of carbon tax to deal with effects of climate change.
Day 2 of the Africa Climate Summit. Heads of state and government thronging KICC to deliberate on measures to counter climate change. With the African continent facing adverse effects of climate change, despite contributing just 3% of global emissions, President William Ruto lamented over African countries being forced to divert development funds to curb the effects of climate change.
Many of our countries are headed into debt distress because of climate change. Let's be honest. And because of climate change, we are forced to divert resources that are meant for economic growth into dealing with the effects of climate change. I've had to increase resources meant for school feeding from 1.5 million children in school, under school feeding. We've had to scale up this year to 4 million kids in school to be put under school feeding. And we've had to rearrange the budget to provide for that.
Despite the surging cost of living across the globe, the head of state noted that African countries use between 5 to 15% of their GDP to counter climate change.
We don't want to die in this continent. We don't want to die of debt, but we also don't want to die of poverty. That is why we must have a conversation around multilateral development banks and concessional financing, and how we can finance our economies using resources that do not punish us.
With the various industries on the spot over emissions, President Ruto proposed the introduction of carbon tax in a bid to discourage emissions and fund other development projects.
We believe it is time to have a conversation about carbon tax. We believe it is the only way, it is among the ways that we can raise additional and adequate resources for us to finance our development. And while we are thinking about financing, for us in Africa, 3 things are very important. As they say in Kenya, mambo ni matatu. Number 1, speed. It takes inordinate to access any meaningful resources. Number 2, it requires scale. And number 3, affordability, so that we all pay the same.
Sultan Al Jaber, the president of COP28, on his part noted that funds must be made available to actualize the summit's resolutions, with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling on large emitters to take responsibility.
And the key to making this happen is, of course, finance and finance and finance. This finance must be made available. This must be made accessible. And this finance must be made affordable.
And the largest emitters must lead the charge in line with my Climate Solidarity Pact and Acceleration Agenda.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
Now, as the Africa Climate Summit entered its second day, President William Ruto has continued to lament over the existing financial systems, which he says is unfair to African countries, while calling for commensurate payment methods with the European countries. Ruto took the opportunity to assure the delegates that the continent will not relent in a bid to ensure there's an overhaul of the existing financial systems.
Many of our countries, and we are here and they say figures don't lie. 9 countries are already in debt distress in our continent, over the cliff. 13 countries are classified as high risk, and another 17 countries are classified as moderate risk. And the biggest contributor to debt distress in our continent is high interest rates. We pay 5 times more than others, meaning that in fact, the architecture is set up in a manner that if you borrow, it will be difficult for you to pay. And that is why we need a conversation, and a very candid conversation, and we are saying this in all honesty, around how do we get concessional funding? How do we pay as much as others are paying? How do we get Africa away from paying 5 times more? And I asked in this gathering, we're not asking to be favored. We're not asking to be treated differently. We want a fair financial system that treats everybody equally. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not too much to ask.
Kenya Medical Supply Authority Acting CEO Andrew Mulwa had a rough time explaining to the Public Investments Committee on the Auditor General's report on the destruction of an assortment of drugs worth 150 million shillings after their expiry date. Stanley Lugaria now reports.
The Drugs Distribution Authority, KEMSA, led by Chief Executive Officer Andrew Mulwa, on Tuesday, while appearing before the National Assembly Committee on Public Investments to answer on the reports arising in the Auditor General's report, Nancy Gathungu, on alleged misuse of funds from the authority's financial reports for the financial years 2017 to 2021, respectively. The committee wants the authority to explain the real situation in the process of dumping of expired medical products and how to eliminate criminals in the waste of the authority's money.
To indicate that despite the quality problems that this product had and was withdrawn and delisted, there was change in policy from the syrup to the dispersible tablet. So I think even if the product was to be even if the product was to be lifted, he could not supply that product because it was no longer in use for clinical management, and therefore there was a product substitution agreement.
KEMSA boss had a difficult time explaining the claims of misuse of authorities' money by the previous leadership, as he concurred with the Auditor General's report that KEMSA did not have the title deeds of land worth more than 150 million shillings, including title deeds of Meru municipal land.
So it was hard to establish the ownership. Is it owned by KEMSA or is it owned by the state agency? To resolve this, we approached the county government, and they gave us an alternative piece of land, about 10 acres, which we have progressed, and we now have a title deed.
But we have made a lot of progress in terms of the land getting titled. Most of it is the cadastral survey, which has already been undertaken. We are awaiting the report.
According to Auditor General, KEMSA could not explain the claims of exchange that may have received as discovered in the report. Mulwa failed to provide a complete report on business and other payments, including long-term debts of more than 800 million shillings that could not be provided, while he failed to explain why the authority did business with the Ministry of Health on debt.
There was a question on why we are doing business with the Ministry of Health on credit. I've just explained that we offer supply chain services. We offer supply chain services to the ministry for the national strategic programs, and once we finish the distribution of the commodities under those programs, that is when we invoice the ministry. We give credit to suppliers. We don't, not unless, and it's very rare. It has happened about only 2 times in my 12-year experience, where a supplier is supposed to be given prepayment for a certain project.
Regarding the implementation of the budget, Mulwa found difficulty in explaining the lack of income of more than 452 million shillings, while the committee requested the authority to avoid the huge budget allocations. so as to avoid funds misappropriation as captured by the Auditor General.
The wisdom of the administration then was to do that. The practice currently is different.
Misappropriation of public funds took center stage during the meeting today. KEMSA, while appearing before the Public Investment Committee, has concurred that indeed there was public misappropriation of public funds and now has been asked by the committee to turn around the issues. Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
The Central Bank of Kenya, Governor Kamau Thuge, has stated that the country does not recognize cryptocurrency as legal way of making transactions, and therefore the operation framework of WorldCoin is illegal. Melvin Getembe now reports.
As the probe on WorldCoin operation continues to take shape, CBK Governor Kamau Thuge dismissed the controversial registration, saying cryptocurrency is not a legal way of making transactions, and therefore the operation framework is illegal.
To my knowledge, and I could be wrong, I don't think there is a country that has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. But I think just to assure you, Mheshimiwa Kiari, we are not burying our heads in the sand. We are trying to be cautious. I did say we try to maximize on opportunities while at the same time minimizing risk.
Cryptocurrency is illegal. I think that needs to be very clear. It is not legal tender.
Dagoretti MP John Kiarie said that Kenyans were induced to have their iris scanned, and that were if not for the token given in return, then Kenyans could have bashed the registration.
That WorldCoin were in town to register individuals and users to a new system they are calling the WorldCoin. However, if they had come to KICC and not offered a cryptocurrency in exchange for the iris scan, chances are we would not be talking of 350 Kenyans registering, meaning that there was a transaction going down in our malls and a transaction happening in a place like KICC. My question was, being that I walk into KICC, have my iris scanned, and in exchange I'm induced with a payment called cryptocurrency, was the WorldCoin operation in Kenya legal or illegal?
According to the CBK governor, he is not in a position to monitor M-Pesa transaction due to the value of transaction done. CBK was then required to submit a written report after necessary engagement with Safaricom.
The amount of transactions that take place in M-Pesa in a week is in the hundreds of billions.
According to the victims who appeared before the committee, WorldCoin agents told them that the purpose of WorldCoin registration was to analyze data. Victims also complained of health complications. They are then expected to record a statement at the DCI offices tomorrow for further investigations.
Can't do without glasses. It's something that I need to do with the glasses. Meaning, when I don't use my glasses when using a computer or watching TV, it will turn red.
Your eyes will turn red.
Yeah, and get irritated.
And before the WorldCoin experience, you're okay?
I was okay, yes.
Melvin Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
At least 68 students of Shandarema Boys High School in Kakamega were forced to sleep in the cold after fire raised down their dormitory. Now the fire is said to have started in the afternoon and spread throughout one of the dormitories. Now police have launched investigations to establish the cause of the fire.
Students of Shandarema Boys School in Shinyalu, Kakamega County are counting losses following a Monday afternoon fire in the dormitory that destroyed belongings of at least 68 students.
Wanafunzi karibu 68 hawana mahali pa kulala, hawana vitabu. Shule imepoteza vitabu ambao walikuwa navyo na mambo yote ambayo walikuwa wameandika yamepotea. Kwa hivyo tunaomba wahisani watembelee shule na waweze kuokoa shule. Shule ilikuwa na jina nzuri, wamekuwa wakifanya michezo, wamefika mbali. Lakini haya mambo ambayo yametokea, tunaomba wanafunzi asiwarudishe nyuma. Jina la shule bado linaendelea kung'aa na tunaomba kwamba kwa sababu ni muhula wa mitihani warudi kwa vitabu wakati mipango inaendelea kufanywa ili matokeo ya shule yawe mazuri.
Speaking to the press, one of the school sponsors, Eric Lungaho, said that the cause of the fire is still unknown, although investigations concerning the matter had commenced. Lungaho asked the school's community to remain calm as the situation was being handled.
Mkasa ambao uliweza kutokea karibu mwendo wa saa 9 alasiri leo, moto ambao ulitokea katika dormitory moja katika hii shule. Nataka ni appeal kwa wanafunzi pamoja na the entire school community kuendelea kuwa watulivu, maana kuna investigative agencies ambao wako shuleni saa hizi ambao wanajaribu kuchunguza ili tukaweza kujua chanzo cha hiki moto ilitokana na wapi.
Area residents have appealed to the government to hasten the reconstruction as the exam period is approaching and the students need a conducive environment to continue with their studies.
Na ningependa kuomba wanafunzi wa Shandema tuwe watulivu, na ningependa kuomba viongozi wetu wakiongozwa hata na mama wetu, Mama Nanziva ambaye ni MCA wetu, bunge wetu wa Shinyalu Mheshimiwa Freddy Kana, gavana wetu wa Kakamega Gavana Fernandez Baraza, pamoja na women rep wa Kakamega Mama Elsie, na senate wetu wa Kakamega, muweze kuungana pamoja tukuje tusaidie shule hii, kwa sababu wanafunzi wengi ambao wameathirika na janga la moto ambalo limefanyika siku ya leo.
Hadasa Crystal, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Right, time to take a break here on the bottom line. We'll be back in a minute.
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata, Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Thank you so much for staying with us on the Bottom Line KE. Now, Mombasa County has launched electric power tuk-tuks with the capacity to travel up to 120 kilometers before recharging. Now, the Union of Tuk-Tuk Action have stated that the move will help in conserving the environment.
Mombasa Transport Association have embraced the use of electric power vehicles with the aim of helping to curb climate change effects to the environment, especially harmful gases emitted by vehicles using petrol and diesel fuel. This system of transportation, which has begun gaining popularity in the county, has been well received by the residents and the managers of these associations, terming it as environmental friendly.
Cha kwanza kabisa hii gari lazima uwe msafi nayo. Hiyo tayari tumeshaanza kuhifadhi mazingira. Haina kelele, pollution free. Itasaidia sana.
Led by Wycliffe Mwale and Benjamin Jumwa, who is the chairperson of the association, have requested for easy availability of the tuk-tuk spare parts, as well as building a factory that will smoothen its manufacturing in Kenya.
Ziongezeke kwa soko, ili nayo hata bei ya vitu zingine kama batteries zikuwe nyingi, na at least ziwe kuna battery ambayo inaweza enda muda mrefu kiasi. Otherwise hii kwangu iko na faida kubwa, hata kwa madereva wengi itakuwa faida kubwa, especially watu wale kule mashinani ambao kuna stima lakini petroli kule ni shida. Hii ndio iko na nguvu, kuna nguvu ya kubeba mizigo, kuna nguvu ya kubeba abiria. Hata ukiangalia ndani inaweza kaa abiria waine, ni kubwa kidogo hata kuliko ile nyingine.
Tuk-tuks that use electric power goes up to 120 km mileage before the battery drains, which takes a span of 4 hours to recharge.
Pesa nilikuwa natumia kujaza mafuta ilikuwa pesa nyingi sana kwa siku. Sometimes hata unapata dereva anaweza enda kakwamia kwa barabara kukosa mafuta. Lakini juu hii hakuna mafuta yote tunashughulika nayo, inakuwa faida imepanda juu kiasi.
Kama mafuta unatumia 1200 na hizi utatumia robo ya ile mafuta, ambapo utaiswap mara moja, inamaanisha utalipishwa kwa fuel shilingi 400. Tunaikumbatia 100%.
Mostly this type of a vehicle uses one or more electric motors that transmits energy to its battery. The quality of the battery of these vehicles vary within the type of a vehicle. Additionally, when using this type of a tuk-tuk, they do not emit smoke, neither do they make noise. Electric vehicles feel lighter to drive because they accelerate more quickly than cars with conventional fuel engines. Roga Ival, Lookuptv.
Police in Murang'a County have arrested 26 female Ethiopian aliens who were holed up in a 3-bedroom house allegedly for being in the country illegally. Wairimu Wasike brings you this story rather.
It is were found camping, their faces telling the tales of horror they went through here. In the raid, 2 people were arrested in the syndicate. Confirming the incident, Murang'a County Police Commander David Matthew stated that they received the intel from locals and jumped into action.
Tumeweza kujua kwamba walianza kusafiri ama walivuka mpaka tarehe 14 mwezi wa 7 mpaka tarehe 2 mwezi wa 9. Lakini hawakuwa wanakuja wote pamoja, wanakuja 2 watatu hivyo. Na pia tumeweza kujua kwamba ni kama walikuwa wanakuja wachache. Lakini wote wako hapa 26, na pia tumeweza kuwapata watu 2 ambao tumewakamata, na watatupa habari zaidi kuhusiana na hawa wasichana ambao wako mahali hapa kutoka nchi ya Ethiopia.
Among those arrested were girls between the ages of 22 to 32 at the house of Philip Kamwaro, who is currently the main suspect, while the police arrested another man by the name of David Gachengu to help with the investigation.
Now, residents of Lodo, Turkana County have been forced to walk long distances to access water, and what's worse, after numerous kilometers, the water they access is unclean, causing waterborne diseases among the locals.
Water shortage continues to be a crisis in most parts of the country, with the situation in Turkana County proving dire. The situation has forced residents to trek for long distances searching for water, while others are forced to access unclean water at Kawalasi River and Takol River.
Shida yetu hapa kubwa ni maji. Maji ndio imekuwa shida. Kupata maji hapa sio rahisi upate. Inabidi uende distance ya karibu 5 km kupata maji. Lowasco wameshindwa kuprovide na mapipes za maji. Si maji hapa tuko na 5 years bila kupata maji.
The residents are accusing the water supply company Lowasco for failing to provide services to locals, leading to waterborne diseases infection.
Kampuni ya kawaida ya Lowasco inasemekana ya kwamba ni kampuni, lakini hatuoni maji ukikuja. Hao wanaishi tu wakisema ya kwamba maji itatufikia na hatuoni. Sasa tunasema ya kwamba hata hiyo sio kampuni, afadhali walibadilishe kampuni walete kampuni nyingine. Kwa sababu sasa sisi tunakunywa maji ya laga, hii ya laga iko na chumvi na iko na wadudu sasa hivi ndani. Hata hatuelewi tutafanya nini.
Kampuni ya Lowasco haijawahi tusaidia, nasikia tu haijawahi tusaidia.
The residents are now calling on the county government to intervene and provide a solution hastily.
Tungeomba serikali ya county itusaidie na maji. Loasco imeshindwa na kazi. So sisi tunayaomba maji kama wakazi wa Kawalase. Maji connected tupate maji because hiyo ndio kitu yetu ya maana.
Nushin Mungasia, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Now, lobby group Linda Jamii has moved to court challenging the utterances made by President William Ruto on sugar cartels, claiming he is in the violation of the constitutional principle of the rule of law. Now, the petition filed by Linda Jamii through its director, Fred Ogola, claims that the remarks made by the president border on cold-hearted death threats by the president, who is supposed to be the symbol of national unity.
Wafisadi wote wahame Kenya, na wasipohama tunawafunga jela, na wakiendelea wapange mpango waende mbinguni.
They are words that have elicited debate in the country, with different actors taking the chance to castigate the president for what they term are threats.
The president, whose utterances were aimed at the two Rai brothers mentioned herein above, told the Rai brothers to either leave Kenya, withdraw cases they have filed in court over the control of management of sugar, or go to jail or go to heaven.
Lobby group Linda Jamii is the latest to call out President William Ruto. Led by the director, Fred Ogola, the group has filed a petition to challenge the utterances.
We have just submitted a petition to High Court of Kenya challenging the utterances made by the President William Ruto, which are in violation of the constitutional principle of the rule of law, among other various provisions. This petition is about the unfortunate remarks made by the President of the Republic of Kenya in his uncharacteristic castigation of what he terms as cartels in the sugar industry in the country, which unfortunate remarks border on cold-hearted death threats by the President, who is the symbol of national unity. Additionally,
Ogola further argues that the president's utterances not only amount to death threats, but also undermine the principle of the rule of law and separation of powers, doctrines, and the system of checks and balances contemplated in the Constitution.
The petitioner, which is Operation Linda Jamii, argues that the president's impunged utterances not only amount to death threats, but also undermine the principles of the rule of law and separation of powers, doctrines, and the systems of checks and balances contemplated in the Constitution. The President's comments, if not retracted, an official and conditional apology proffered from the Presidency will create a perception in the Republic of Kenya that undermines judicial independence by dint of it being the custodian of justice and due process in Kenya, and will also see the rule of law disrespected without recourse.
The group wants the court to issue a declaration that the utterances of the president undermine judicial authority, contrary to Articles 48, 50, and 159 of the Constitution.
The president's utterances are also a threat to the independence of the judiciary, a threat to the independence of the freedom of the bar, a threat to the independence of access to justice, and avenue for creating bad precedents.
The group now wants the president to issue a public apology, adding that failure of the presidency to issue a public and conditional apology to Kenyans.
Therefore, our main plea before the Honorable Court is that they confer a ruling that the president's utterances are out of order, that the president must unconditionally apologize and withdraw the utterances, failure to which we shall submit a petition to Parliament seeking for his procedural impeachment.
Brian Amwai, Lookuptv, Nairobi. Time for sports. Now, Harambee Starlets head coach Beldin Odemba has named a provisional squad ahead of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations qualifiers. Now, the squad has gained a boost by the return of the FC PAOK striker Essie Akida. Starlets will face Cameroon in the first step of qualification on 22nd of this month before a return match in Nairobi on the 26th of this month.
We believe that the electoral code that should be put in place should be done in conjunction with FIFA and with all the stakeholders. We also believe that the only way we can go through this saga is to have a general assembly of the members of Football Kenya Federation. That one can only be done if there is a notice that should be in place as soon as yesterday. And the main agenda of that general assembly should be football election. What we are asking for is for a polite message to the Cabinet Secretary of Sports to hold a stakeholder meeting and find a big breakthrough for the purposes of holding an election by February.
And for us who have played football, the national team, FC Leopards, I think we are not being utilized enough. So that's our cry, that if we can be part of the whole system, developing the kids, developing football in Kenya, I think it would be a plus for us legends who have played, and we feel part of the government, we feel part of the sport.
Kama former players, we have been in the call for a very long time. Federation zote ambazo zimekuwa mbele yetu hawajawahi kutushughulikia zote, mpaka hii ambayo ni sasa ya Nick Mwendwa. Tumekaa nje, tumeweka kichwa ndani, imetolewa, tumeweka mguu, tumekanyagwa. Hatuna.
All right, now the men national volleyball team, Wafalme Stars, lost to Cameroon 3-1 in their opening match at the African Volleyball Championship held in Cairo, Egypt. Here's more.